Shalom, Boker Tov, Shomer Shabbat. Geez, where to begin? There's so much. There's always so much with me, you know. My brain just won't stop thinking. So some of you might ask, with this timeline, sorry, the camera mirrors this for some reason. Like, this is my right hand, but on the screen it's the left. Anyway, some of you might question this analysis, right? And say, who would do that, Gabe? Who would start a war to profit from both sides? Who would create a drug war just to make money off the drugs and the anti-drugs, right? Who would do that? Who would start a war to profit off both sides? The bankers. To me, this is an obvious question, not even worth asking. But some of you lack the integrity, not just the intelligence, but the honesty to actually draw these conclusions on your own and ask these questions for yourself. So I have to ask them for you. This isn't everyone watching the video, of course, but at least one or two, if not more. 'Tis not my fault thine critical thinking skills be lacketh. Anyway, the bankers. Now, Judaism, the way I first learned it is that Jews are born with the divine spark, the divine soul, the godly essence. And as a goy, a Gentile, I will never have the divine spark. I can convert. Well, my Jewish learning decided to, switch it up, right? Apparently it's a hot ticket these days, Judaism. Yeah. So, they're like, oh, we gotta do some marketing here. We're gonna lose customers if we exclude on the true basis of our religion. Better change that. So, there's a video there like, oh yeah, no, the divine soul can be grafted in through conversion. Dude, that'd be so cool if I could alter my Goyim DNA into Jewish DNA and then become genetically predisposed to banking. I kid. Anyway, the bankers, right? Yeah. So when I first translated Amalek, as the white man puts it, to Hamelech, and I realized that bankers have more power than governments over certain countries if the banks have more money than the government. My main, it's the Jews conspiracy sort of biggest examples that came to mind were David Sassoon. Now, this is just like the Sackler family. Both the Sassoon family and the Sackler family are Israeli. They're Jews. They're billionaires. Wealthiest people on the planet. Not the wealthiest, but they're up there. Yeah. So, the Sassoon family is a good place to start. Sassoon owned the East India Trading Company. And I think it was the 1800s. Their dynasty. They had more wealth, and it was foreign wealth, than the King of England. It was generated from all these from international trade. I don't know if it was quite global trade. I don't know if he crossed the Atlantic or the Pacific for that matter, but he definitely crossed the continent from Europe and Africa to Asia. That is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because all three of those are just one big landmass, but somehow they're considered separate continents. At least Eurasia is sometimes referred to as a single continent. Which explains why the lion was indigenous to Europe, Asia, and Africa, and the white man hunted the lion to extinction in Europe, whereas tigers and lions still thrive in Asia and Africa, right? What good is good is a strong body when you have a weak mind, hence Africans failing to eliminate the lion from eating their kids and whatnot. And vice versa with Asians. What good is a strong mind when you have a weak body, hence Asians failing to stop the tigers from eating their kids and whatnot. But I digress. Bankers. So, David Sassoon was behind the Opium Wars. His wealth, his wealth gave him more power over the military than the king had. Now, some of you might not know this. Learning in college is only reinforcing all the conspiracies. Not the anti-Semitic ones necessarily, but the capitalist, globalist, conspiracies. The original role and still to this day primary function, primary directive of the Secret Service is money. It's to protect the economy, the American economy and the American financial institutions and the American trade. This means the president's prime directive, right? The primary role of the president, his primary high priority, his top priority is the economy of the United States, which connects to the military. Hence David Sassoon. He used the British military to help the East Indian Trading Company. They might as well have been employees for the company, the corporation. The corporation was more powerful than the government, hence the corporation was the shadow government, right? It was puppeting the government. I'm sure the King of England was like, oh yeah, the Chinese, they something, just go get them. They don't want to do the opiates that this Jewish banker, Mr. Sassoon, is pushing on them, so we're going to use the British military to murder the shit out of them until they start doing the heroin like we're telling them to. For king and country. And that's all it was. Money. His money gave him more control of the Marines and the Army and the Navy, etc., than the king had. Just like the Sacklers. Same thing. Southeast Asia, from Afghanistan to Cambodia, the Golden Triangle, I believe it's called, or was called for decades. Great climate for growing poppies. Every time I hear the marijuana junkies or pushers, oh, it's just a plant. Yeah, heroin comes from a plant. So does cocaine. Poisonous water hemlock is just a plant. So, the bankers have more control of the government than the government does. And so it becomes a question of who regulates who. The government's role is supposed to protect the lower class and the working class and the poor and whatnot from the greed of the rich. It fails. Now, I'm sure it does this to a small extent, but just the legalization of marijuana proves that it fails. Marijuana is destructive. Make no mistake. Don't lie. Let's be honest. Now, when you look at this timeline, right, where the bankers created a drug war so they could make money off both sides, and socially engineer a black market that transitioned into a legal market, this shows that the bankers planned this out decades in advance. This is all a design. This is all a very specific agenda that was successfully implemented. What can one man do, right? If I were to get a gun and just start shooting people, I wouldn't stop it. I mean, I'd at least, have done something. Like the Nazis, right? I would have lost. I would have died. But at least I died doing what was right instead of living by doing what was wrong. Yeah, no. And that's the funny thing about it, is the church fits into this, the Christian churches. So, I think the bankers control the churches as well as the government. The banks control the church as well as the state. Now you might say, Gabe, no, churches are tax exempt. How could the bankers possibly control the churches? Brr. Well, I really do agree with Joseph Atwell, with the Club of Rome and the Flavians and the Alexanders and whatnot creating Christianity as a social control mechanism for the poor. David Sloan Wilson talks about this quite a bit as well. Tomorrow I arranged to go to the Mormon church. I don't think I'm going to do it. Which sucks, because I am so fucking alone. I am so deprived of human contact. But my biggest thing against the Mormons is they're so brainwashed to this globalist agenda. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they're just crypto Freemasons. They're just pseudo Freemasons. Like this, it's Freemason Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Like, they're sober Freemasons. And every time I go to a Mormon church, there's all the wokeness there. Race mixing, ethnic diversity, love your enemies. It's very masochistic. The masochrist. Because it's rooted in Christianity, and all Christianity is pacifist masochism. Love your enemies, give them the cloak off your back? Yeah, that's stupid. What are you, retarded? Oh, they're coming to rape us. Better bend over for them. That's loving your enemy. We don't want to be mean to the people raping and murdering us. That's not what Jesus would do. When I had talked previously about this innate morality and how it's been subverted, right? How do they interfere with the natural instinct? Christianity. Long before television and radio and the printing press and so forth and so on. And this is where Mormonism, as a hyper-accelerated version of Christianity, mirrors the Episcopalians and the Baptists and the Methodists and so forth and so on. Is they're pro-immigration, right? What's their argument? The Bible says, remember, you were a foreigner in a foreign land. No, you weren't. You're not Israel. You're not Jewish. You're just wannabe Jews. You were never in Egypt, buddy. You were never in the Exodus. You were never a Hyksos. The same goes to Christians, but no. Who is all about helping immigration, right? When you hear these white supremacists say, oh, the Jews are behind immigration. Yeah, no, Christians and Mormons, very big on just flooding America with diversity, with immigration. And that is having a negative outcome. This is a variance, covariance, the analysis of multiple covariance. There you go. Multiple factors. Marijuana is one big primary causal component, but so is mass immigration, demographic changes, and so forth and so on. There's a few other ones like pornography, social media, etc. They're all contributing to the decline of the United States. No longer are we once a world superpower. No longer are we a world superpower like we once were, when it was mostly white and Christian. This is so bad that immigrants are leaving, right? The parasites came and realized that the host is being already killed by so many other parasites that they're like, no, this place sucks. Look, us immigrants are ruined this place so bad that we're actually moving on to another host to parasite off of. I'm dead serious about that. You can Google it yourself. If you don't believe, Bing it, DuckDuckGo it, whatever. Brave it. There are immigrants who got to New York and all the marijuana and the open homelessness and all that. They went on to Canada. A couple of family from Honduras immigrated up here and said, "Ugh," went back. And why is it? Why are Christians so self-destructive and masochist in the name of diversity and inclusion? Because the bankers maybe planted a priest or two in there, and the priest just programmed the people, the sheeple, the goyim, right? Do. Yes, immigration. Yes, gay marriage. Yes, master. Yeah, no, the average life expectancy in the United States hit the bell curve, and now it's declining every year. It gets shorter and shorter as a result of marijuana, immigration, and all the other contributing factors. Now, that's the funny thing about Christianity and how stupid Christians are. Is the Bible's open to interpretation. So, oh, well, your version says we're not supposed to be so inclusive, but my interpretation says otherwise. Atheists can ridicule this, but atheists also fell for things like COVID. Right? I love that false intellectual superiority of, oh, I'm an atheist, therefore I'm smarter than all the Christians. Oh, no. And I can get into COVID on a whole long thing, but like even recently, I got on the Liberty University website this morning and, oh, COVID strategies. Really? COVID-19 is still a thing? What if it never was a thing? And it was just, like Christianity, another social control mechanism to keep the poor poor? Because that seems to be what Christianity is really good for, is keeping the poor under the boot of the rich. Just like marijuana. Really good for keeping the poor under the boot of the rich. When there is a collapse, I guarantee the banks will blame the government and the government will blame the banks, but neither one of them will take accountability and say, you know what, it was us.